Cannabis isn't just a plant. It's a mirror. It reflects the state of your soul, amplifying everything that already exists within you. Society tells you it's either medicine or menace, a tool for healing or a path to destruction. But the truth is, these labels don't even begin to scratch the surface of what cannabis really is. It doesn't care about your beliefs, your culture, or your politics. What cannabis does, at its core, is reveal the truth about you, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because it doesn't alter your reality. It shows you exactly what's hiding beneath the surface of your own consciousness. For centuries, cannabis was revered as a tool for spiritual awakening. It wasn't used for escape or entertainment. It was used by those who understood its power. In ancient traditions, cannabis was handled with care, used in specific rituals and ceremonies designed to align the mind with the divine. The plant was never meant to be a casual experience. It was a doorway, one that opened into realms of consciousness, but only for those who were prepared to meet themselves fully. Take ancient India, for example. Cannabis wasn't something to casually smoke after a long day. It was offered to Lord Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation. Shiva is the one who dissolves illusion so that truth can be born. His devotees, the ascetics known as artists, didn't smoke cannabis to feel good. They smoked to die, to the ego. The chillum was not a recreational accessory. It was a sacrament, used as a tool to dissolve the sense of self and to enter a state of heightened awareness. This wasn't about feeling good. It was about experiencing a profound transformation, a shedding of the layers of the false self. In the practices of Taoist alchemy, cannabis wasn't something to numb the senses. It was used to refine the inner energy, to quiet the mind, and to trigger visionary experiences. It was used not to escape, but to awaken to deeper layers of reality. The plant was seen as a spirit ally, capable of enhancing perception and consciousness, but only if the user was prepared. If they were not, the results could be unbalanced and chaotic. In these ancient traditions, cannabis was treated with deep reverence and respect. It was seen as a tool for spiritual growth, not for casual pleasure. Before using it, there were rituals, fasting, chanting, solitude, practices designed to clear the mind and prepare the body. Only then would the plant be consumed. It wasn't about enhancing a party or dulling the mind. It was about creating space for transformation. But today, cannabis has been stripped of its sacredness. In the modern West, it's sold like candy, consumed casually in between tasks, and marketed as a lifestyle choice. It's glamorized, commercialized, and reduced to a trendy accessory. We've forgotten its deeper purpose. What was once a powerful tool for spiritual transformation has been diluted into an everyday commodity. The sacredness has been lost, and in its place is nothing more than sensation, consumption, and shallow experiences. This video isn't about whether cannabis is inherently good or bad. It's about what happens when we use something powerful without understanding its true potential. It's about what happens when we engage with a plant that was once sacred, with no intention, no respect, and no preparation. When cannabis is used without reverence, it ceases to be a tool for transformation and becomes a tool for distraction. It amplifies what's inside of you, but without the proper structure, it magnifies confusion, escapism, and ego rather than clarity, truth, and awakening. The issue isn't with the plant itself, it's with how we approach it. We've forgotten that cannabis was never meant to be an entertainment tool or a method of numbing. It was meant to be a mirror, showing us who we are at our core. It can reveal deep truths about ourselves, but only if we are prepared to face them. Without preparation, cannabis becomes nothing more than a shortcut to temporary relief, a fleeting escape that leaves us unchanged. Most people don't realize that when they use cannabis, they're walking into a sacred space, a space that requires respect, intention, and preparation. They enter that space with muddy feet, unaware of the power of the plant they are about to engage with, and when they emerge from that experience, they wonder why they feel more lost than they did before. They may feel high, They may feel something profound, but without the proper guidance, the experience can turn chaotic, fragmented, and ultimately hollow. Cannabis is not about escaping the world or forgetting our problems. It is about meeting them head-on, with no filters, no distractions, and no illusions. It shows us the truth, but only if we are willing to see it, and that is why it is a test that most people fail, not because the plant is flawed, but because they are not prepared to confront what it reveals. The truth about cannabis is that it doesn't create experiences. It reveals what is already inside of you. What you feel when you use it is not some external force being imposed upon you. It's your own mind and soul amplified. If you enter the experience grounded and clear, cannabis will deepen that clarity. But if you're lost, it will magnify your confusion. If your ego is fragile, it will show you the cracks. If your mind is chaotic, it will turn the noise up to unbearable levels. Most people mistake this amplification for the plant's fault, but it's not. Cannabis isn't the problem. It's the mirror it holds up to your soul. And sometimes the reflection isn't pretty. If you're unprepared, that reflection can feel like a nightmare. Anxiety, paranoia, fear, these aren't the results of the plant itself. They're the results of a mind that is not aligned, a spirit that is not grounded. And when you're faced with the truth of what's already within you, it's not always easy to confront. This is why ancient cultures treated cannabis with such reverence. They understood that the plant was a doorway, but it was a doorway that needed to be approached with care. It wasn't something you casually stepped through without understanding where it would take you. In these traditions, the preparation was just as important as the experience itself. Fasting, meditation, prayer, and cleansing. These weren't superstitions. They were ways to clear the mind, to purify the body, and to make sure that when you entered that doorway, you could handle what you would find on the other side. Shamans, mystics, and spiritual seekers didn't use cannabis for pleasure. They used it for transformation. They didn't consume it casually in social settings or in an attempt to feel good. They used it as a tool for awakening, a tool to dissolve the ego and break through illusions. They knew that in order to use cannabis effectively, they had to be prepared to confront the darkest corners of their own psyche, the parts of themselves they had hidden away, the aspects of their soul they had rejected. And this is the core of the danger of cannabis in today's society. In the modern world, cannabis is sold and consumed without any real understanding of its potential. We've lost the rituals, the reverence, and the respect that came with its use. Today, cannabis is a commodity, available in dispensaries and delivered to your door, often with little more than a promise of relaxation, creativity, or chill vibes. But what happens when we use cannabis without preparation, without the grounding, without the reverence? We're setting ourselves up for an encounter with a force we're not equipped to handle. The ego loves this. It thrives on distractions, on numbing, on avoiding confrontation with the deeper aspects of self. The ego wants comfort, wants to stay in control, and cannabis, when used casually, can become the perfect tool for that. It provides temporary relief, temporary escape, without forcing you to face the truth. But that relief is just an illusion, because all the while, the real work, the inner work, is being neglected. The reality is that cannabis doesn't simply numb the senses. It brings everything to the surface. It amplifies your thoughts, your emotions, and your inner world, but it doesn't filter them. What you experience is an unfiltered version of yourself, your fears, your unresolved pain, your doubts. When you use cannabis without the necessary preparation, it's like opening a door to a room you've been avoiding, only to realize that it's full of the dust, cobwebs, and clutter you've been too scared to clean. In mystical traditions, this is referred to as the shadow, the parts of yourself that you've rejected, buried, or ignored. Carl Jung called it the unconscious mind, filled with the aspects of the self that remain hidden from our conscious awareness. These are the things we don't want to see, the feelings we don't want to feel, the thoughts we don't want to think. And when you use cannabis without grounding yourself first, the shadow comes to the surface. It can feel overwhelming, unsettling, even terrifying. But here's the thing. This is not the plant's fault. Cannabis is not causing the anxiety, the paranoia, the discomfort. It's revealing it. It's showing you the parts of yourself that have been buried beneath layers of distraction and illusion. And for those who are unprepared, this can feel like a wake-up call, or worse, a nightmare. The key is understanding that this discomfort is not the plant's fault. It's an invitation. It's feedback, telling you that there's something within you that needs to be healed, understood, or released. When used consciously, cannabis becomes a tool for healing. It shines a light on the shadow, giving you the opportunity to confront it, to process it, and to let it go. But this only works if you're willing to face what comes up. If you're not prepared, the plant doesn't create chaos. It simply magnifies what's already there. If your mind is full of anxiety, cannabis will amplify it. If your heart is full of unresolved pain, it will bring it to the surface. If your ego is fragile, it will expose the cracks. This is why traditional spiritual practices always emphasized preparation before using cannabis. Fasting, prayer, silence. These weren't just rituals. They were a way to clear the space, to align the mind, and to create the conditions for transformation. In these traditions, the plant wasn't used to escape the world. It was used to confront it, to face the shadow, to break through the illusions. Without preparation, cannabis becomes a mirror that reflects only confusion, discomfort, and unprocessed emotions. With preparation, it becomes a key that unlocks deeper layers of awareness, understanding, and transformation. The difference lies in how you approach it, and whether you are willing to meet yourself fully, without distraction, without filters, and without the ego's desire to control the experience. In spiritual traditions, there's an understanding that transformation does not come without conflict. True awakening requires a confrontation with the self. The ego, that part of you that identifies with your past, your fears, and your limitations, doesn't like this process. It doesn't want to face the things you've buried, the emotions you've repressed, or the truths you've avoided. And cannabis, when used consciously, acts as a catalyst for this confrontation. It's not a drug. It's a tool of revelation. But what it reveals isn't always pleasant. What cannabis does is break down the walls that the ego has built to protect you from the discomfort of facing your shadow. In doing so, it forces you to see the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. And when you're not prepared for this, the experience can be overwhelming, even terrifying. The plant doesn't make you feel these things. It amplifies them. It holds up a mirror and asks, "What have you been hiding?" This is the core of the danger. Many people think they are using cannabis for relief, to relax, to unwind. They light up expecting a peaceful escape, but instead, they find themselves face to face with unresolved trauma, suppressed emotions, or painful truths. This isn't because the plant is bad or evil. It's simply because they weren't prepared to meet these aspects of themselves. The truth is, when the ego begins to unravel, it can be terrifying. It can feel like losing control, as though the very foundation of who you think you are is dissolving. This isn't a comfortable experience, but it's also not a mistake. The plant is doing exactly what it was always meant to do. It's stripping away the layers that you've built around your true self, showing you the parts of your soul that need healing, and forcing you to face them. Cannabis, in its purest form, doesn't numb the pain. It amplifies it, forcing you to deal with the things you've been avoiding. This can feel like chaos. It can feel like everything is falling apart, because for the ego, it is. But it's not the plant causing the destruction. It's the destruction of the ego's illusions. What cannabis does is break through the surface noise and show you what lies underneath, the parts of yourself you've rejected or hidden away. And in those moments, it can feel like your very identity is being threatened. Jungian psychology calls this experience the shadow, the unconscious parts of ourselves that are repressed or denied because they're deemed unacceptable by our conscious mind. The shadow contains all the parts of us that we've disowned or rejected: our fears, our flaws, our anger, our grief. And when we confront the shadow, it doesn't always feel good. It's uncomfortable, painful, and often difficult to process. But here's the secret: it's necessary. Because true healing begins when we can look at these dark aspects of ourselves, accept them, and integrate them into our consciousness. In many traditions, confronting the shadow is seen as an essential part of spiritual awakening. The ego must die, at least in the sense of the false self that has been created by fear, societal conditioning, and self-deception. Only when the ego dissolves can true awareness emerge. And cannabis, when used consciously, can be a tool for this process. It's not about the plant giving you answers. It's about the plant showing you the questions and forcing you to confront them head-on. But this isn't an easy path. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It's raw. And if you're not ready to face your shadow, the experience can feel like a nightmare. Many people report feeling anxiety, paranoia, or a strange sense of losing control when they use cannabis. But what if these experiences aren't caused by the plant? What if they're caused by the fear of confronting the shadow? What if it's not the cannabis that's making you anxious, but the fact that you're being forced to confront parts of yourself that you've been running from? This is why many people, after using cannabis, feel as though they've gained some sort of insight into their lives or their soul. But the key is not in the experience itself. The key is what you do with the insight once it's revealed. This is where the real work begins. Cannabis may have opened the door, but it's up to you to walk through it. The danger of cannabis is not that it causes chaos. It's that without the proper tools for integration, that chaos can become a pattern. When you experience intense emotions, insights, or revelations under the influence of cannabis, you must have a way to process them. Without grounding, without reflection, and without a plan for integrating what you've learned, the insights become fleeting, and the chaos becomes a cycle. The more you run from the shadow, the more it will come back to haunt you, higher and louder each time. This is where the ancient traditions differ from modern use. They didn't just use cannabis and then go about their day. They had practices, grounding practices, reflective practices, rituals that helped them integrate the insights gained during their experiences. The plant was just the beginning. It wasn't the end goal. The end goal was always transformation, healing, and awakening. The plant was a tool, a bridge, a mirror, but the real work happened in the silence that followed. It happened in the choices that were made after the high faded, in the humility to confront the darkness, and in the willingness to face the parts of yourself you've been running from. Without the ceremony, the grounding, the integration, cannabis becomes a temporary escape. It becomes a tool for amplification without direction. You see everything, but you understand nothing. You feel deeply, but you don't grow. And in the end, it's not the plant that fails you. It's the lack of preparation, the lack of structure, and the lack of willingness to do the real work. Many seekers enter into a relationship with cannabis seeking spiritual enlightenment, self-discovery, or simply a deeper sense of peace. They light up, expecting to receive some kind of cosmic download, some profound revelation that will illuminate their path. But there's a subtle danger here. The feeling of transcendence that cannabis often provides isn't the same as actual awakening. Cannabis can open the door to altered states of consciousness, but that doesn't mean it's automatically leading you to truth. The experience itself can feel profound. Emotions are amplified, thoughts are clearer, and ideas flow more freely. It can feel like a burst of insight, a sense of connection with the universe, or even the perception of understanding deep spiritual truths. But these experiences, though real in the moment, are not the same as true spiritual transformation. The danger lies in mistaking the experience for the goal. Cannabis can create the appearance of spiritual clarity, but without integration, that clarity quickly fades. What you feel in the high isn't necessarily a reflection of permanent growth. It's a temporary experience, a heightened state of awareness that can make everything feel more vivid, more profound, and more meaningful. But what happens when the high wears off? Where do those insights go? How are they applied? This is where many people get caught. The high feels like enlightenment. It feels like you've tapped into something greater, something higher. But the truth is that the plant is simply amplifying your current state. If you're feeling open, connected, and grounded, cannabis can heighten those feelings, creating a deeper sense of presence. But if you're feeling scattered, anxious, or disconnected, cannabis can amplify that as well, making the discomfort more intense, more overwhelming. In spiritual terms, this is the difference between experiencing a temporary state of expanded awareness and achieving lasting, sustained spiritual growth. True spiritual awakening is not something that comes in a burst of insight or during a fleeting high. It's something that requires consistent effort, grounded integration, and deep humility. It's not about the highs. It's about what happens when the high fades. It's about the work you do when you're sober, when the insights you gain during the experience are applied to your everyday life. This is where the illusion begins. People often mistake the temporary clarity they experience with cannabis as real transformation. The high feels transcendent, like you've crossed some threshold into spiritual wisdom. But in reality, it's just a momentary glimpse. It's like standing on a mountaintop and feeling the wind on your face. But the mountain isn't the destination. It's just the view. And when this illusion of enlightenment takes hold, it can lead to what many traditions call spiritual inflation. The ego, which is always seeking recognition, begins to claim the experience as its own. It starts to believe that just because it had an intense, profound moment of insight, it has somehow arrived. The person becomes attached to the high, to the feeling of transcendence, and they begin to chase that feeling again and again, mistaking it for spiritual progress. But the high is just a feeling. It doesn't last, and it doesn't lead to real growth unless it's grounded in true change. In ancient spiritual practices, this was recognized as a dangerous trap. In the Sufi tradition, for example, the mystics would use substances like hashish in their ceremonies to dissolve the ego. But even they understood that if the plant didn't lead to the annihilation of the ego, it was nothing more than an illusion of awakening. Rumi, one of the great Sufi poets, warned that intoxication could mimic the feeling of awakening, but leave the soul untouched. He cautioned that the plant could amplify the ego, inflating it with false light, making you feel enlightened without actually changing you. In these traditions, the ego had to be dissolved, not decorated. Cannabis could take you to the edge of that transformation, but it couldn't do the work for you. It could open the door, but it was up to you to walk through it. Without the right guidance, without the right grounding, without the proper context, the insights you gain while high can become another form of self-deception. In modern culture, the plant is marketed as a tool for relaxation, creativity, or a way to unwind after a long day. But what's missing in this approach is the deep reverence that ancient traditions held for cannabis. They didn't use the plant to relax. They used it to awaken. They didn't use it to escape. They used it to confront the ego, to face their shadows, and to grow. Today, cannabis is consumed casually, like any other consumer product, and with that, its sacredness has been lost. But the plant hasn't lost its power. What's happened is that we've forgotten how to hold it. We've forgotten how to approach it with reverence. We've turned something once sacred into something disposable, treating it like a shortcut to spiritual growth instead of a tool to reveal the truth. And in doing so, we've allowed it to become an illusion of progress rather than a true catalyst for transformation. The truth is, cannabis doesn't give you enlightenment. It gives you a glimpse. It shows you what's possible, what could be, but it's up to you to carry that vision back into your life. The real work starts after the high fades. It starts in the integration of what you've seen, in how you live and move through the world once you've seen the truth. That's where the real awakening happens, not in the high, but in the grounded application of the insight that the high reveals. When you look into a mirror, you see yourself, right? But what if that mirror is distorted? What if it shows you not only your face, but the unseen layers of your soul, the parts you've ignored or hidden from? Cannabis is that mirror, and it doesn't lie. It doesn't filter or smooth over the discomfort. It reflects everything. What you see when you use cannabis isn't the plant's fault. It's what's inside of you, magnified. If you enter the experience carrying unresolved pain, confusion, or a fragmented sense of self, cannabis will reveal that. If you are seeking escape, it will amplify your desire to dissociate, to numb. If you're searching for clarity, it will deepen your understanding. It doesn't create new emotions or experiences. It amplifies what already exists. And this is where the misunderstanding happens. Many people believe cannabis will give them the peace they've been searching for, the answers to their struggles. They use it to escape the noise of their minds, to find calm, to feel better. But what if the calm they're looking for isn't found in the high at all? What if it's found in the ability to sit with discomfort, to confront the feelings they've been running from, to process what's truly inside? The plant is not the problem. The issue is how we use it. Cannabis reveals truths that we often try to avoid. It shines a light on the shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather not see, the parts that hold our deepest fears, our unhealed wounds, our suppressed anger, and our unresolved grief. And while that may feel terrifying, it is also liberating, because once these parts of us are revealed, they can begin to heal, but only if we're ready to face them. There's a reason why so many people report feeling anxiety or paranoia after smoking cannabis. It's not the weed. It's what the weed is showing them. It's revealing the things they've buried or ignored, the fears they've kept hidden, the pain they haven't allowed themselves to feel. But instead of facing these emotions, most people turn away. They try to numb them, avoid them, or distract themselves. They blame the plant for the discomfort, when really, the plant is just showing them what's been there all along. In spiritual traditions, this concept is known as confronting the shadow. The shadow isn't something evil or malicious. It's the hidden aspects of ourselves that we've repressed, the emotions we've ignored, and the truths we've denied. It's uncomfortable, but it's also essential for growth. Until we confront the shadow, we cannot truly heal. And cannabis, when used consciously, can be one of the most powerful tools for doing so. But only if you're ready, only if you're willing to sit with what comes up, to look at it without judgment, and to allow it to pass through you. Cannabis won't do the work for you. It won't magically dissolve the shadow or take away the discomfort. It will simply reveal what's already there, so that you can do the work yourself. This is why many people have transformative experiences with cannabis, while others have terrifying or disorienting ones. The plant doesn't judge, it simply amplifies. It doesn't care whether you're ready to face your own darkness. It shows you the truth regardless of whether you're prepared to accept it. If you enter the experience with a fragmented or ungrounded mind, cannabis will amplify that confusion. If you're carrying unresolved pain or trauma, it will bring that pain to the surface. But if you've done the inner work, if you've cleared the clutter, if you've prepared yourself with grounding practices and self-awareness, cannabis will deepen your connection to truth. And herein lies the paradox. Cannabis is a tool of healing and awakening, but only if you are prepared to confront the healing that it brings. It doesn't bring peace, it brings clarity. It doesn't make you better. It shows you where you need to grow. It reveals your deepest fears, but it also reveals your deepest potential. It amplifies whatever is within you. And this is why the experience is so powerful. It shows you who you really are, without the filters, without the ego, and without the distractions. The real work with cannabis is not in the high. It's in what you do after. It's in how you process the insights, how you integrate the lessons, and how you apply the wisdom to your life. This is where true transformation happens, not in the moment of insight, but in how you live when the high fades. It's easy to feel enlightened when you're in an altered state of consciousness, but the real test comes when you return to the normal world, when the high wears off and the insights must be lived. True spiritual growth is not about the experiences you have while high. It's about how those experiences shape your everyday life. It's about how you interact with others, how you face your challenges, and how you remain grounded in truth when the world pulls you in different directions. Cannabis can open the door, but it's up to you to walk through it. It can show you the path, but it's your responsibility to follow it. And this is where many people get lost. They chase the high. They seek the feeling of transcendence, the sense of connection, the profound insights that come with it. But they forget that the real purpose of the plant is not to make you feel good. It's to show you the truth. And the truth isn't always comfortable. The truth is not always easy. The truth often requires facing parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. But that's where the real transformation happens. When you're willing to look at the truth, when you're willing to face the discomfort, when you're willing to do the work that comes after the high, that's when the magic of cannabis really begins. As we discussed, cannabis is a tool, not the path itself. It opens doors, shows you glimpses of deeper truths, and can provide a mirror to your soul. But the real work begins when you step away from the plant. The high fades, the sensations subside, and you're left with the truth you encountered during the experience. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you take the insights and let them transform you? Or will you let them slip away like fleeting thoughts, dismissed and forgotten? This is where many fall short. They experience something profound while high, a moment of clarity, a sudden breakthrough, and they believe that the insight itself is the end of the journey. But here's the truth. The high isn't the destination. It's a spark, a momentary glimpse of what could be. But transformation isn't instant. It's sustained. Cannabis can show you the way, but it's up to you to walk the path. When used consciously, cannabis doesn't just give you insight. It asks you to live that insight. It challenges you to integrate what you've seen, felt, and understood into your daily life. Without this integration, the experience is just another momentary high. The revelation you had is no more than a temporary emotional state. It's only when you take that clarity, when you bring it back into your life, and when you start making real changes that the transformation becomes true and lasting. The ego loves the high. It loves the feeling of transcendence, the sense of expansion, the belief that you've unlocked something deeper about yourself. But the ego doesn't want the work. It doesn't want to confront the parts of itself that are still broken, still unresolved. It doesn't want to change. The ego wants validation. It wants to feel like it has achieved something without actually having to do the hard work of living in alignment with the insights it receives. This is why cannabis can be so dangerous when it's used without integration, without grounding practices, without reflection, and without a plan for applying what you've learned. Cannabis can become a tool of spiritual inflation rather than transformation. The high becomes a performance, a show put on for the ego, rather than a tool for the soul. The insights you gain during the high become little more than stories you tell yourself, ideas you've had, feelings you've experienced, but they don't change anything in your life. They don't shift your actions, your thoughts, or your behaviors. True integration is not about simply understanding your truths. It's about embodying them. It's about changing how you show up in your relationships, in your work, in your daily routine. It's about taking the clarity you gained while high and using it as a compass for your actions. It's about making different choices, living with more awareness, and being more honest with yourself. This is where spiritual maturity comes in. It's one thing to have a breakthrough, but it's another thing entirely to live from that place of awareness. Cannabis can reveal deep truths, but it's how you act on those truths that matters. If you gain insight into your patterns of avoidance, but continue to run from difficult emotions, then nothing has truly changed. If you understand the depths of your pain but never take the steps to heal it, then the insight is just an intellectual exercise. If you see how your ego has been running the show but fail to shift your behavior, then you've missed the point entirely. Integration means moving beyond the high, beyond the moment of insight, and into the real work of living differently. It's about sitting with discomfort, not running from it. It's about accepting that the journey doesn't end with the experience, it begins with it. Cannabis shows you the door, but you must walk through it with intention and humility. This is why preparation is so important. If you don't prepare your mind, your heart, and your body for the experience, the plant will reveal your inner chaos, but you won't have the tools to process it. The result will be confusion, fragmentation, and eventually burnout. When used with reverence and intention, cannabis can be a guide, but without a container, without structure, it simply becomes noise. In many spiritual traditions, the work of integration was done in community, with guidance, support, and reflection. It wasn't something done alone. Cannabis was never intended to be a solitary practice, but a communal one. In these communities, people would come together to share their experiences, to reflect on the insights they gained, and to support each other in their growth. This communal approach helped ensure that the wisdom gained was not lost, but lived. Today, we lack this communal structure. People often use cannabis in isolation, without the support of others, without the opportunity for reflection, and without the guidance of an experienced mentor. This isolation makes integration difficult. It leaves people to process their insights alone, often without the tools to understand or apply them in meaningful ways. But it doesn't have to be this way. Even in the modern world, you can create your own sacred container. You can gather like-minded individuals who are committed to personal growth and spiritual awakening. You can create space for reflection, for sharing, and for grounding your experiences, whether it's through journaling, meditation, group discussions, or spiritual practices. You can create the conditions for true transformation. The plant will show you what needs to be seen, but it's up to you to create the container for that transformation to take root. Integration doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong process, one that requires patience, self-awareness, and a commitment to living from a place of truth. It's not about seeking more highs or more insights. It's about applying the insights you've already received and living them every day. So the question is, how will you integrate the insights you've gained from cannabis into your life? How will you walk the path beyond the high? Will you continue to use the plant as a tool of escape, or will you use it as a catalyst for real change, for deeper self-awareness, and for spiritual growth? Because the plant can show you the way, but it's up to you to walk it. At its core, cannabis is not a recreational substance. It's not something you use to pass the time or to fit into a social setting. It's a plant of power, a plant that has been revered for millennia in various spiritual traditions around the world. In ancient cultures, cannabis wasn't casually consumed or taken for granted. It was handled with care, respect, and ceremony. It was seen as a sacrament, something that had the potential to unlock the deepest parts of the self, to reveal hidden truths, and to guide you on a path of self-discovery and transformation. The modern use of cannabis, however, is largely detached from this sacredness. It's been commodified, marketed, and sold like any other product. People buy it as casually as they buy a cup of coffee or a bottle of wine. There's no preparation, no reverence, no understanding of the spiritual power contained within the plant. And this shift in how we engage with cannabis is a significant part of why it often fails to live up to its true potential. When cannabis was used in sacred ceremonies, the experience was never about the plant itself. It was about what the plant revealed, what it opened up in the user's consciousness. It was a doorway, a tool for entering into the depths of the soul, for confronting the shadow, and for awakening to a deeper understanding of the self and the universe. The plant wasn't the end goal. It was a means to an end, and the end was spiritual growth, healing, and transformation. But in today's world, Cannabis is often treated as a quick fix or a form of escapism. People light up after a stressful day, seeking relaxation or relief from anxiety. They seek out the high, the euphoria, the temporary sense of peace. But without ceremony, without preparation, without intention, the experience remains shallow. It becomes just another high, another distraction, rather than a transformative experience. Cannabis doesn't have the power to transform you if you're not ready. And more importantly, it can't guide you if you haven't prepared the space to receive its guidance. In ancient traditions, ceremony was everything. It wasn't just about the plant. It was about the context in which it was used. It was about the rituals, the silence, the fasting, the cleansing. It was about entering into the experience with humility and reverence, knowing that you were stepping into a sacred space, a space that required responsibility and respect. In the Rastafarian tradition, cannabis isn't simply smoked for pleasure or socializing. It is used in reasoning sessions, sacred gatherings where the herb is passed around with prayers, reflections, and the search for truth. It's not about getting high. It's about getting aligned. The smoke becomes a bridge, a connection to the divine, and the session becomes a communion with God, with the self, and with each other. It's not about escaping life. It's about remembering the divine within it. Similarly, in Sufi traditions, cannabis was used in ceremonies to dissolve the ego and unite the individual with the divine. But even in these sacred practices, there was caution. The plant was never seen as the ultimate goal. It was merely a tool, a key to unlocking deeper understanding. And only those who were ready, those who had prepared themselves spiritually, were able to handle it. The moment someone used the plant to inflate their ego, to seek pleasure without purpose, it lost its sacredness. The plant has not changed. Cannabis is still capable of guiding us to profound insights, of opening doors to greater understanding, of amplifying our connection to the divine. But the way we engage with it has changed. We've stripped away the ceremony, the reverence, and the context that once made it sacred. And without this framework, cannabis often becomes nothing more than a shortcut to temporary relief, a way to numb the discomfort of life rather than confront it. This is why it's essential to reclaim the sacredness of cannabis. We need to return to the traditions of preparation, intention, and ceremony. It's not about getting high. It's about getting real. It's about using the plant as a tool for transformation, a tool that reveals what is hidden, amplifies what needs to be healed, and opens us up to a deeper truth. But this cannot happen without ceremony. Without ritual, without preparation, without a clear intention, cannabis becomes just another escape, another way to avoid facing the deeper questions of the soul. In modern life, where everything is fast, convenient, and instant, the idea of ceremony feels out of place. But this is exactly why it's so crucial. We have to slow down. We have to prepare the space for the sacred. We have to create intentional rituals around cannabis use so that it can fulfill its true potential as a transformative tool. The plant asks for respect, for patience, and for reverence. It asks for the space to guide you inward, to strip away the layers of the ego, to reveal what has been hidden for too long. The question becomes, how can you reclaim this sacred relationship with cannabis? How can you reintroduce ceremony and intention into your use of the plant? It's not about buying a pretty pipe or getting the most potent strain. It's about setting the stage for a meaningful experience. It's about finding moments of silence, of solitude, of reflection. It's about preparing yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to receive the plant's wisdom. You can start by creating a simple ritual. Set an intention for your use of cannabis. Create a quiet space free of distractions. Light a candle. Take a few deep breaths and focus on what you want to gain from the experience. Whether it's healing, clarity, insight, or connection, hold that intention in your mind as you use the plant. Afterward, take time to reflect. Write down your thoughts, your feelings, your insights. Ask yourself how you can apply what you've learned to your life. Cannabis can be a tool of profound transformation, but only when used with respect, intention, and reverence. When we strip away the ceremony and use the plant casually, we lose the opportunity for deeper growth. But when we approach it as a sacred ally, when we prepare the space and honor the plant's power, it can become a powerful tool for healing, insight, and spiritual awakening. Cannabis can be a powerful teacher, but it is not the destination. It is a means to an end. The real work begins when the high fades, when the insights and revelations you've gained are no longer experienced in an altered state, but are carried into your everyday life. The plant may reveal deep truths, but it is you who must integrate these truths into how you live, how you move through the world, and how you interact with others. This is the essence of spiritual maturity, the ability to take the lessons learned in altered states and apply them in the mundane, in the ordinary moments of life. True transformation isn't measured by how profound your experience was during a high, but by how you live once the high fades. It's about being grounded enough to embody the insights you've gained, to show up differently in your relationships, your work, and your personal struggles. For many, the high becomes the focus, the sense of expansion, the feeling of connection, the wisdom that comes in fleeting moments. It feels so real, so profound that it's easy to confuse the experience with the goal itself. But this is the trap. The high isn't the goal. The goal is how you live after the experience, how you carry the light that you glimpsed during your journey into your daily life. Spiritual awakening is not about constantly chasing transcendence, not about perpetually seeking highs. It's about learning to live with presence, with clarity, and with intention. It's about seeing the world, not through the veil of ego or distraction, but with the unfiltered vision of truth. It's about stepping into alignment with your higher self and living from that place every day. Cannabis can give you a glimpse of that higher self, but it's up to you to make the choice to embody it. This is why the work of integration is so crucial. It's not about recreating the high, but about allowing the wisdom you've received to shape the way you engage with the world. This requires consistency, discipline, and mindfulness. It requires you to confront the parts of yourself that need healing, to take action in your life, to make real, lasting changes. It's easy to feel spiritual in a high, but can you remain aligned when you're not in that altered state? Can you remain present when the distractions of life pull you in different directions? The true test is not in the experience, but in the everyday choices you make. Cannabis may open doors to deeper understanding, but it's the integration of those insights into your life that creates true transformation. It's about how you move through conflict, how you show up in relationships, how you face your fears, and how you handle the challenges that life throws at you. And here lies the greatest lesson. Cannabis shows you the way, but it is not the path. The plant can help you strip away illusions, but it can't walk the journey for you. It offers insight, but it is you who must put that insight into practice. This is where the real power lies, when you take the clarity gained through cannabis and begin to embody it in your daily life. This is when true change happens, when the experience becomes a part of who you are, when the wisdom becomes the foundation of your life. In ancient traditions, the use of cannabis was not about using the plant as an escape or a way to feel good temporarily. It was about transformation, awakening, and living in alignment with a deeper truth. Today, we must reclaim this understanding. We must remember that the plant is not a crutch or a shortcut to spiritual awakening. It is a tool, a powerful tool that reveals what is already within us. But it is up to us to do the work, to walk the path, and to live the truth. True spiritual practice doesn't end with the experience. It begins with the experience and continues in every moment of your life. It's about carrying the wisdom from the plant, from the insights it has shown you, and bringing them into your interactions with others, your actions, and your choices. It's about being grounded in truth, not just when you're high, but when you're sober, when you're faced with discomfort, and when you're tested by life. Cannabis is a tool, not the end goal. It is a mirror that shows you what is inside, but it is you who must decide how to use that reflection. The real transformation happens when you stop chasing the high, when you stop looking for external validation, and start living from the place of inner truth, groundedness, and clarity. The insights you gain aren't meant to be stored in your mind or held onto as part of your identity. They are meant to be lived. So the question becomes, will you live from the wisdom you've gained? Will you integrate the insights and let them guide your actions, your decisions, and your path forward? Will you stop looking for answers outside yourself and start living as the embodiment of the truth that cannabis has helped you see? The plant has shown you a glimpse, but it's up to you to walk through the door, to live what you've learned, and to embody the transformation. Cannabis opens the door, but it is you who must step through. And when you do, you'll realize that the true power has always been within you. The plant doesn't give you answers. It shows you that the answers were already there, waiting for you to see them. And once you've seen them, it's your responsibility to live them.